The year is 1933. It's the worst year of the Great Depression, the Great Plains is suffering through the Dust Bowl, and Adolf Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany. And then Ruth Bader Ginsburg comes along. Ruth was born Joan Ruth Bader, and was a very smart student and achieved high grades in her grade school. Her mom Celia was also a good student in her youth, and even graduated high school at age 15. Celia had an active role in Ruth's education, and often took her to the library, where Ruth really found passion in learning. Over Ruth's high school years, her mother struggled with cancer and died one day before Ruth graduated. Instead of giving up, Ruth began to reach new heights and attended Cornell University, where she met her future husband, Martin D. Ginsburg, and graduated. Then, in 1955, they moved to Oklahoma, where Ruth worked for a Social Security Administration and had a daughter. In the fall of 1956, Ruth and 8 other women enrolled at Harvard Law School in a class of about 500 men. The dean invited all the women law students to dinner and asked them, "Why are you at Harvard Law School taking the place of a man?" This made Ruth furious, who wanted to prove gender biases wrong. She left Harvard and enrolled at Columbia Law School, where she was first in her class. In 1960, Felix Frankfurter rejected Ginsburg for a clerkship position because of her gender, even when given recommendations from Albert Martin Shacks, who was a professor and soon to be dean of Harvard. Felix still wouldn't give her the position. Fast forward to 1970, Ruth co-founded the Women's Rights Law Reporter, which was the first law journal to focus on women's rights. As she became the director of the ACLU Women's Rights Project, she argued 6 gender discrimination cases before the Supreme Court and won 5. One of her most famous cases was the Weinberger v. Weisenfeld case. The case was about how Stephen Weinfeld's wife died and he had to take care of their only child with a low-paying job. Instead of receiving Social Security survivors benefits, he was turned down because they were only available for widows and not widowers.
In my lifetime, I expect to see 3, 4, perhaps even more women on the High Court bench, women not shaped from the same mold, but of different complexions. I surely would not be in this room today without the determined efforts of men and women who kept dreams of equal citizenship alive. I have had the great good fortune to share life with a partner truly extraordinary for his generation, a man who believed at age 18 when we met that a woman's work, whether at home or on the job, is as important as a man's.
With her legal victories came discouragement among legislators in treating men or women unfairly under the law. In the year 1980, Ruth was nominated by Jimmy Carter to a seat on the United States Court of Appeals, where she stayed until appointed by Bill Clinton for a seat on the Supreme Court, where she was the only second woman justice. Dude, uncool. Ruth demonstrates her hard-working ability with workouts that include 20 push-ups and planks. She is still in the Supreme Court today, fighting to bring justice to this nation with a moderate and careful view. Ruth has always been careful to not be biased and to be as open-minded as possible because she believes that everyone should be held accountable for their actions and not based on their race or gender.
Some terrible things have happened in the United States, but one can only hope that we learn from those bad things. Think of when I grew up at the time of World War II. The irony was we were fighting a war against racism, and yet by an executive order of President Roosevelt, people who had done nothing wrong except they were of Japanese ancestry, were interned in camps far from their homes. That was a dreadful mistake. It took a long time for the United States to realize how dreadful it was.
Women are persons of equal dignity, and they should count equally before the law.
You won't settle for putting Susan B. Anthony on the new dollar.
When they would say things like this, how did you respond?
Well, never in anger, as my mother told me. That would have been self-defeating. Always as an opportunity to teach. I did see myself as kind of a kindergarten teacher in those days, because the judges didn't think sex discrimination existed. Well, one of the things I tried to plant in their minds was, think about how you would like the world to be for your daughters and granddaughters. Well, I would say that we are not experiencing the best of times. But there's hope in seeing how the public is reacting to it. The Women's March, I've never seen such a demonstration, both the numbers and the rapport of the people in that crowd. There was no violence. It was orderly. So yes, we are not experiencing the best of times, but there's reason to hope that we will see a better day.